Hello, bestie, and welcome back to the Plobcast for episode 6. This is your friendly reminder that this is not for little ears. This is not a little ears friendly podcast. I am unmonetized on here, so I get to be brutally honest, which is going to bring me to my first topic we're going to talk about. So we do have GameStop stories and stuff that have been sent in, and usually I do those first, and then I get into the other stuff. We're going to start with the other stuff first because as I said in my video about this, the holy clam slam, the stuff that I have seen in the last couple of days while on bed rest from surgery is it's so bad that a Canadian Catholic priest would say goddamn to this situation. So I started getting sent these videos of this woman named Gabi Jacobson, or Jacob something. Jacobson, sorry. My brain is so fried right now from going through this. I had to take so many breaks from watching this stuff. And I was like, why are people sending me this? And then I saw it. Just a quick content warning. She compares herself to war veterans. She fakes TV. She abuses her kids. And she also she hired somebody or like paid a friend or something to have an entire to stage a fake CPS investigation while talking about sex in front of her kids and stuff on live. Oh, she also does reactions apparently to people making fun of her. And I fucking want you to see this, bitch. I want you to fucking see this. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I want to extend to you the same offer I offered Casey Anthony. I live in the state of Texas. I am in Central Texas. We are a mutual combat state, which means it is completely legal to fight somebody if both parties consent with a cop there. I will pay for your fucking flight down here. Because the shit you put your kids through is fucking insane. And since you want to lay your hands on your kids so much, why don't you fucking lay your hands on somebody your own goddamn size, bitch? And to be absolutely clear, that is not a threat. That is an offer. Once again, Texas is a mutual combat state, and I will pay for your flight down here, your hotel, whatever you need. So let's start off with talking about the live that she did, faking CPS, and then we will get into the other stuff. So she is live. She goes live quite a bit. She fucks up with her kids. She live streams just as much as Ash Trevino did and is doing the same stuff Ash Trevino did to her teenage girls, but doing them to her young son. She lies about him having autism, which is another thing that was close to home for me because I am autistic and my son actually is autistic. So to lie about something like that just for clout. And once again, the veteran stuff, the comparing herself to war veterans, the fucking cheerleading stuff too. Because if you don't know, I used to do cheerleading. You can find the pictures and stuff on my page. And she knows exactly what she's doing when she does these tutorials and supposed like how she's giving tips. She is lowering in young girls to her page. Knowing damn well that she is extremely inappropriate on that page. So no, there is no fucking excuse. It's one of the reasons I don't do stuff like that. Also, I have a spinal condition from the army. I can't do as much as I used to be able to do anyways, but I would never post certain things on my page, even though they're skills I have, because I know they are going to bring in underage audiences, and I do not want an underage audience. My page is 18 plus, because a lot of the plob stories alone, like the domestic violence stuff too, but the plob stories alone can get kind of graphic. Even with guidelines and stuff, it's still not something that a lot of these stories, like the butt plug one at Magic Gathering Night, is not something a child should be watching. But Gabby over here, the grotesque Gabby, that's what I'm gonna start calling her, Miss Grotesque. She's also in active court right now because of some of this shit. But Miss Grotesque over here was live, because she's constantly live. Like I said, she's like fucking Ash Trevino. And she fakes CPS coming to her house and then starts talking about sex in front of her kids. So in the CPS live, they come in, and you can tell that it's fake by several reasons. So they come in and they're calling themselves CPS, which, by the way, an actual CPS worker, yes, they might say that later on in the conversation, but by law in every single state, they have to do a certain disclosure before they say anything. There's a lot. They even have to record them doing the disclosure to confirm that they did it for legal reasons. Nobody's walking in and saying, "Oh, I'm CPS. Did you fuck in front of your kids and shit?" That's not how that works. And that's how she plays it out. She's very clearly either paid an actor, paid a friend, somebody. She has somebody come in. They're like, "Oh, this is my name. I'm from CPS," and then just immediately starts questioning her while live. And she's like, "I'm live right now. Is that okay?" And the CPS were, "Oh yeah, that's fine." No, that's so yes, you legally can record CPS as part of your rights, but that's not at all how it works. You have to do these disclosures. The CPS worker has to say certain things. They're going to say, I'm from Department of Human Services and stuff, all of that spiel first. There is no world where they just walk into your house while you're on live and 2 seconds later started talking about these topics. They also will not ask you these questions in front of your kids when it is of that graphic of nature. She also, another way that it was very obvious is the CPS worker is talking about a diaper rash, which is something a bunch of her followers were like talking about, where she left, like her children are being abused. She's done it on camera. During all of that, right? They're like, okay, we need to look at your child, right? This bitch is like, oh, I'll just send you a picture and send it to you. No. There is no fucking the CPS, the fake CPS worker is like, oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. Just go take a picture of him and send it. There is no fucking world. There is no fucking world. Even the most incompetent CPS worker is going to let you just take a picture and send it instead of checking the child themselves. People have also pointed out that this, supposed CPS worker came in at like night. It was basically in the evening on a weekend, and they only come out for those calls for emergencies and stuff. So there's no, and if they had an emergency, then cops would have came with them. All this other stuff, like that's not how it works at all. It is so freaking obviously fake. And the scariest part of this is, yes, part of it's for views, but also my educated guess from having to deal with people like this in the mental health field, and from like my experience growing up too, is she is doing this she did this whole skit to try to get people to not call CPS, like the real CPS, because then they think that they've already came out. So I am going to encourage those who were planning on calling to call. I'm looking for her damn address myself, because people are saying that it's on the and it's somewhere out there, like somebody's doxed her. So I've been looking for it so that I can make a call myself too. And anybody who is trying to avoid having CPS come to anybody who's trying to avoid having CPS come to their house after specific allegations like abuse and stuff is the problem. You are suspicious, because if you don't know, my freaking incel chomo supporting sicko group has like doxed me before and like called false CPS reports in, and I had no problem with them coming because I knew all of it was false. It took them 5 minutes to figure out it was false. I even have the paperwork that I posted publicly showing it was completely cleared because they figured out everything was a lie. And so I have no problem, like, when they show up. Okay, hi, what you doing? Come on in, buddy. I have nothing to hide because I know what the shit's being said that was said by them. Like, I didn't know what they had accused me of at first, but I was like, yeah, just let me know whatever they accused me of. Take me 5 minutes to disprove whatever the fuck it was, and that's how a good parent reacts. A good parent is not constantly in fear of like CPS coming in over online allegations if they're not real. That's where my problem stands, is the fact that she went so above and beyond to fake a CPS visit to try to get people off her ass about CPS, like her very real abuse, is very telling, because you can tell very much she does not want real CPS showing up at her house and finding out the shit she done. But it's so much worse than that, because we got to talk about the events that led up to this situation. There's so many clips. She is faked DV before. She did a whole scenario where her son accidentally stepped on the tablet. Now, this is another thing that pissed me off, because my kids have accidentally cracked little pieces of my iPad, because my husband got me an iPad Pro for Christmas a few years ago. Or sorry, not Christmas, our anniversary a few years ago. He got the pin for Christmas. That's what it was. And I have never flipped out on them and stuff. Like, they've lost the privilege to it for a while. They've been grounded before, but I've never flipped out on them. She, not only was it her fault that it got crushed, because she put it in the laundry basket. You could see all this on live. She puts it in the laundry basket and then is telling him to get in the laundry. She's playing him with him in the laundry basket, and then surprised when he accidentally steps on it because he's a small child. Like, live viewers are watching this go down. She then starts freaking out and starts talking to her son, talking about, oh, my husband's gonna kill me, I can't tell him, oh my gosh, it's the kid's fault, but and like starts blaming this toddler pretty heavily, to the point where she's even telling him in one of the clips how how daddy's gonna beat her up because he broke the tablet, like trying to shame this toddler. People ended up exposing that no, the husband was not abusing her at all. That was all made up for views. She did this. She not only made this faked domestic violence for views, which sends me through the fucking roof as a DV volunteer and a survivor myself, but not only she faked that, she used it to guilt trip and shame and make this poor child feel like he was an awful person that did this horrible thing to her, even though it was her fault that it got broken in the first place. There are so many clips where she's live verbally abusing these kids, grabbing them up and stuff, and just the neglect to her. It's so bad that at one point she accidentally, like in one of them, accidentally like knocks into her son, and instead of going to his mother, who just accidentally knocked him into the table for comfort, he starts screaming about how he wants his dad and is backing away from her, genuinely terrified of her. You can tell he is genuinely terrified of her. There's multiple clips of the other parent also like trying to play around with him, and him flinching and pulling back and very clearly scared of these parents. There is so much to unpack here. If you don't know, this is the 17 diapers woman, just by the way, if you're unaware, the 17 diapers nurse apparently. I didn't recognize her at first, and then immediately, like, I started seeing her, I saw her son, I was like, oh yeah, that's the kid that was getting abused last year too, because she has a long history of, like, she did videos at one point showing where she was sitting at the table. Keep in mind, this woman's a nurse. Well, I don't know if she's still got her license or not, but there was an arrest at one point too. Like, I feel bad for her patients too, her former patients. I know at one point she switched to travel nursing because she couldn't hold a job in hospitals because of everything she was getting caught up doing. There was an arrest that was made a few months ago. I can't find any update on those charges, but this has been an ongoing thing for like over a year now at least. I genuinely do not understand how these kids are still in her custody. There was a point where she would film videos showing her kids grabbing at food while they were at a diner, and her husband just eating right in front of her son. And it wasn't a matter of she couldn't afford it. She just decided not to do it. There's another video of her where it's the middle of winter. It is freezing where they're at. And she didn't want to spend $30 on a coat for her son. And it was, once again, was not a matter of her not having the money. She admitted she had the money. She just talks about how, like, she just feels like it's a waste to get him a coat for $30 in the middle of winter. This young child. Honestly, I'm really hoping that somebody like Rotten Mangoes that does these things, because Rotten Mangoes has covered Ash Trevino before, it picks up this story on her, because it is like hours and hours and hours worth of stuff, and that's just not my platform I don't do true crime really. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. My brain, I will fully admit, I apologize if my stutter is worse. I'm having to pause this a lot more because the stress of this situation. If you don't know, I do have a stutter because of my spinal injury. I also suffer from aphasia because of it. It's a lot better now, but that's why I'm having to pause, because it is so stressful watching this and seeing the system fail these children. If you haven't come across the 70 diapers, or you still, don't recognize this woman, you might have seen her from her newest trend, which is her at court. It's an audio clip of her at court. So she started claiming that she was getting PTSD just as bad as a war veteran from people bullying her online. I am not fucking joking you. She compared her getting some troll comments for being a horrible person, because it's not even troll comments at that point. It's just fucking speaking the truth, because this is stuff that happened on video. This isn't, some crazy made up allegations. These are things that have happened on video, people watching her abuse her kids and stuff. And the fact that she was saying that her PTSD is so bad that it's like a war veteran, it's just as bad as a war veteran with flashbacks. I, as a veteran with PTSD, want to lose my fucking shit hearing her talk about that. But that is what led to her court situation, is she tried to sue a couple of people that were talking about her online. Which, here's the thing, as somebody who has sued somebody for slander before and was successful with it, we settled outside of court for $30,000, well, a little over $30,000. It's, a lot of people talk about how hard it is to sue for slander. Here's the thing, is if it truly is slander, if it is real harassment and stuff, it's not hard. But if it is all true and you're just being a fucking whiny bitch that can't take out what you're fucking serving to your kids, you can't take grown adults holding you accountable, it's not going to go well. And that's how we ended up with these weird court things. First of all, she's representing herself, which she says is supposed to be like, she says she's supposed to be doing it because she thinks she'll represent herself. I'm going to tell you right now, I I would bet my whole fucking paycheck that the reason she's representing herself is no lawyer would take her case. Because I had lawyers running to take mine. As soon as they were, I was like, yeah, I got voice recordings, everything. I've got the fake police reports from when they called and all that shit, right? And people were like, oh, like, so the fact that she doesn't have a lawyer very much screams that nobody would take her case because they knew she was going to lose. And she gets up on the stand in this court case and she starts crying about how traumatized she is. And it's like, but by these people bullying her, I'm like, bitch, what about how traumatized your fucking kids are from the horrible shit that you put them through on camera? But the lawyer is dragging her through the mud because he starts talking about, don't you bounce off your pussy on video? Or, well, he says vagina. He says, aren't you bouncing off your vagina, calling it a clam slam on video to try to bring in young girls to bringing young kids to her page, which a lot of people have been doing funny skits to that audio because she starts crying and it's like, no, I never did that. Even though it's on video of her doing this, of her doing the, cheerleading thing, doing these clam slam things. There was also somebody who made a parody of her. Oh gosh, it's Most Smartest. That's the name of his account, Most Smartest. He does like funny skits of these kind of moms and creators that do this shit. And she like reacts to it, and her only thing that she says about it is like, oh, just so you guys know, I'm not the one that started calling it a clam slam. That was my trolls, and it's really hurtful. What about the hurt that you're putting your kids through? Bitch, I have no sympathy for you. And she has done nothing but cry, it seems like, with all of the court clips that have been released. This woman is just, she tried to sue people for calling her out on her child abuse, couldn't find a lawyer, goes to court and tries to cry, and it's in a very manipulating tone to try to get the judge to side. There's several points where, God, it feels like the Amber Heard case again, where there's several points where she's like trying to, manipulate the situation because they'll show a clip or they'll ask her something and she'll be like, well, wait, can I clarify, judge? Can I clarify, judge? And then has some BS excuse that doesn't even fucking make sense. And it's just all bullshit. We have to stop making these abusive parents famous online because even though it's all negative attention, it's still money for them. And that is why they continue to do it. Like Gabi left at one point. There was a point where she was not on TikTok because her following started to drop. People stopped wanting to have anything to do with her. And then she came back and she's been making a shit ton of money, abusing her kids and doing and lying and all this horrible shit online once again, which is making it so she keeps doing it because she's making money off of it. We have to stop. Please report, block, do not engage at all with these motherfuckers because it just feeds them. It's just like the Jenkins thing with the plob. If you don't know Drew Jenkins, the video game addict, the very textbook definition of a plob, ignoring his kids for it and freaking buying video games instead of necessities to the point where they live in a hotel and all that shit. Okay, now that we have discussed Miss Grotesque Jackass, I'm not calling her Gabi Jacobson anymore. I'm calling her Grotesque Jackass. Let's get into the GameStop stories. So earlier today, I shared a video talking about my experience from the Skittle situation, which reminded me of a coworker story, somebody I used to work with. If you haven't seen the Skittle situation, real quick, I went into the gas station this morning right before picking my son up from school because he's doing a special summer school 2-week program to help him with his reading, right? And I go into the gas station and I just wanted some berry Skittles, and this fucking shirtless man covered in sweat walks up to me and starts talking about how he wants to eat Skittles out of my ass. And I didn't know what to do. I panicked and I just turned around and walked to the counter, and I walked to the line, and I walk up to the line, and then he starts talking about how he thinks that I could fart them into his mouth. I'm still too stunned to speak. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. I'm like, what the fuck do I even, what do I say to that? Who the fuck, like this random middle-aged man, shirtless, fucking covered in sweat in the middle of the gas station. Somebody said he was probably a crackhead. He didn't look like he was on any substances, but he could just be one of those like functional addicts. I don't know. But like, as I went to leave too, he like was talking to the cashier and I could hear him, and he was saying that like, oh, I must prefer M&Ms. This man dead ass looked me in my fucking pupils, talked about fucking eating Skittles out of my ass, talked about me farting them into his fucking mouth, and then when I ignored him, assumed that it was just because I preferred M&Ms. Sir, I prefer you not to speak to me. What the fuck was that? Who the fuck is telling these people to do this? Who the fuck? Why would you do that? What happened to hey, hello, how are you? Like, he didn't tell me his name. He didn't introduce himself at all. He literally just walked up to me holding my thing of berry Skittles and was like, I want to eat Skittles out of your ass. And then started talking about how I could fart them into his mouth. Sir, what the fuck? Somebody said I should have asked him how much he would pay for that. I'm not going to lie. I have a price. So I'm not going to shove Skittles up my ass regularly. That's not something I am interested in. I'm not trying to kink shame, but that is just not. That's not for me. That's not for me, buddy. If you want to taste the rainbow in that method, you go ahead. That's your business, but that is not for me. But realistically, if he'd offered me $50,000, I think I would do it for $50,000. Cash. No, we're not a charity program. It needs to be all up front. No payment plan here. I think for $50,000, I would do that. For nothing less than $50,000 though. But that scenario, an event that happened, is what triggered my memory of a certain coworker that I worked with at GameStop. So when I first started working there, it was like third or fourth year. I believe it was third year working seasonally there because I used to work, different ones after the one shut down. So just whatever one had me, I would work that season for my discount. And this coworker, she was so sweet and nice, but she had a lot of name brand stuff. And I'm like, girl, like, you said that this is your only job because she said that was her only like employment. And I'm like, how the fuck are you affording it? Because GameStop don't pay shit. Like, that's why most of us only do this like seasonally for a discount or have it on the side, or it's like teenagers or something. Like, it's a barely above minimum wage job, right? I think the most I ever made was like $9.50 an hour there one year at like one of the locations. And I ask her, I'm like, how are you getting this? Like, you live at home with your parent? Like, what is happening here? And she admits that she has a side hustle, like a little side business, a small business at home. And I don't think anything of it because once again, they pay us shit. Almost everybody I think I've worked there with at some point had another job or a side hustle or something, right? She ends up getting the flu, like a couple months after this discussion. Ends up getting the flu. And she's out for like a week. She comes back that Saturday and I'm working with her and she's like, talking about how stressed she is. She's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling better about stress because now I'm behind on shipping out stuff for my small business, her small side hustle. And I'm like, oh, well, like I've, had small businesses before. I have worked with a lot of small businesses before. If you need help shipping stuff out, I know how to do all the labeling and stuff. Like I can come help you. And she's like, well, it is a little bit weird, just to warn you. Like, it's a little weird. And I'm like, girl, I teach kink education as a side hustle at events. I can't teach kink safety. I'm not going to be, I used to work in a trauma ER too. So like, there's nothing going to shock me, right? I'm thinking, no big deal. I come to her house on that Sunday because I'm like, yeah, I'll help you get this boxed up and then I can take it in like Monday morning while you're at work and drop it off at the post office. So she shows me to like where this stuff is at her house, and I see dirty socks, dirty panties, and empty mason jars. And I'm like, okay, socks and panties, a lot of guys buy that stuff. There's vending machines in Japan of dirty panties, so no real shocker there. I'm like, okay, I'll help you get this stuff, packed. She's already got the slips on it stuff, so we can bag it up and seal it, like for the smell of and all that stuff, right? And get it shipped off. But then I go to see the mason jars, and I'm like, oh, do you still need to fill these with something? I didn't know if it was maybe for bath water or piss, because there's a lot of guys who will buy women's piss online too. Same with breast milk too, but I knew she wasn't breastfeeding, so I was like, maybe you haven't filled them up yet. And she's like, oh, no, those are ready to go. And I'm like very confused because it's an empty mason jar. And I'm like, there's nothing you're putting in the, like, they just wanted an empty mason jar. She's like, oh, no, I farted in them. I'm sorry, what? I just kind of stood there for a second because I'm like, buddy, what? What do you mean you farted in the jar? And she starts explaining to me and showing me where she was selling her farts in a jar to men online. So I reached back out to her because I remember her telling me a lot of the stories from the different people that she had gotten like sold to, because two of the people that she had sold her jarred farts sorry, I'm gonna swear I'm not kink shaming, I swear, it's fine as long as you don't do it to me. I don't have a problem with you doing it, but like It's just wild to say. It's wild to say jarred farts. Okay, so so two of the people that she done it were local too. So they were local because when she ships it off, she has their address, and so she was super worried because like her whole like spicy content that she was selling these were with video game character cosplays and anime character cosplays. So the typical GameStop customer. So she was like worried that at some point they were gonna come in, but she's like, maybe not so bad. I finally convinced her. Like we had a discussion with our boss to make sure she always like had somebody with her to and from the car and stuff during her shift. Because we were a little worried because what if one of those guys like figures out it's her, even though she wore a mask, like by her body or maybe her voice because she didn't mask her voice. So just to be safe. But she starts telling me about some of these customers, and tell me why. My God, some of this stuff that she even sent me some of the stuff to talk to you guys about that were sent to her, and they are all. I guess it's a plob fetish. I guess it's just a really popular fetish within the plob community. And I'm not saying if you have a fart fetish, I'm not like saying you're most definitely a plob. I promise I'm not. I'm just saying like a lot of the guys that she was having like order these farts were plobs. The mind-blowing thing about this was other than her blowing her wind. Anyways, sorry. She had 3 separate customers who were regulars who used their mother's credit cards. These are grown men still living at home with their mom. But they used their mother's credit card and openly admitted to it and talked to her about how they used their mom's credit card to order these jarred farts. And one of them also ordered a pair of dirty used panties. I'm sorry, sir. What the fuck? As a mother who has 2 children, has 2 sons, I swear to God, if my kid came up to me and was like, can you buy me someone's jarred farts? There's no way. There's no fucking way. I'm sorry. Could you imagine being a mother and your adult mid-30s son comes up to you and is like, hey, I need to borrow your credit card. And you're like, what do you need it for, sweetie? And he's like, I need to borrow your credit card so I can buy jarred farts from this woman online. Like, I'm not trying to shame these people with this kink, but please buy them with your own money. Please do not have your mother buying jarred farts for you. That is a line we don't cross, bud. You gotta have your own money. If you want to buy jarred farts, you need to do it with your own money. What do you mean you asked your mother for the credit card for that? What kind of mother is that? Oh my God. I just can't. Another man that would buy her farts too was technically he wouldn't buy them. His wife would buy them for him. Which, girl, I'm glad you're supporting your man like that. But the reason why is what fucks with me. Okay, you know what? If your husband has a fart fetish and you want to buy him a jarred fart, whatever makes you guys happy. Okay, but it was the fact that the reason why she was buying them was because she said she couldn't get hers smelly enough. She said that she was on this diet and it made it so her farts didn't smell bad enough. So they were supplementing her farts with my coworker's jarred farts in the bedroom. I'm sorry. What the fuck? Like, you can't make this shit up. What do you mean that you went on a diet so your farts don't smell enough for your husband anymore? That doesn't... Why don't you just, eat some Taco Bell or something? I'm very confused. Because this isn't a cheap thing. She was selling them for, $100 a jar. Ma'am, just go to Taco... you can't eat, Chipotle once a month for him or something? Come on. That's... just some Taco Bell, some... Go get some tacos off the taco truck. Go get some, ma'am, what do you mean you're spending $100 on a jarred fart because you don't want to eat junk food one night? That don't make no damn... What kind of rich is that? I want to know what kind of rich that is. I'm not trying to cost her, my coworker, my former coworker, any, customers or anything, but I'm just saying, I feel like if your farts aren't smelling bad enough because of your diet to turn your husband on, maybe you, just, instead of spending $100 on a jarred fart, why don't you just, once, you could break your diet, just have a cheat day, right? A chalupa's $3, okay? what do you mean you're spending $100 on a jar of fart instead of just, ma'am, I don't even know. Like, go buy an MRE from an army surplus store. I don't know what to tell you. It just feels very, I can't believe we're discussing capitalism on farts right now, but like, I just don't understand. I really don't understand the logical thinking there. Speaking of weird purchases in gaming, someone, I still have not been able to, I've been thinking about this comment for like a full day now. Someone commented on my video about Toys R Us, which we'll talk about in a second, saying, you go to Toys R Us to buy Marvel Legends. Like, that was their whole comment. Now, that has nothing to do with my video. I don't know if that's supposed to be an insult, if that's supposed to be a recommendation. I don't understand what that comment was supposed to imply, because they said it in a way that made it sound like they were trying to insult me. And I was just like, what? What does that mean? If anybody knows what that means, I would greatly appreciate. I don't play Marvel Legends. I've been meaning to, but still. What does that mean? Is that like some code that I'm supposed to be figuring out within the gaming community? Because I'm really tired of all these fucking codes incels are coming up with. Like, and also, speaking of, if you haven't seen my video, there's this thing going around called black pilling. They're calling it BP. And I've talked about it before in the podcast too. And like, the amount of people who tried to argue that eugenics was not racist, like, sir, there is no fucking what. And y'all, if you are saying that people who are born white are more attractive to you, then that's this racism. Like, because I'm not talking about like people with preference or whatever, but like the way they were arguing that, you know, blue-eyed blonde white people supposedly are more attractive according to them, you're insulting everybody else. This is racial. This is a problem. But back to the Toys R Us stuff. I really wanted to talk about this because I had to sit down and be like, oh my God, we are doomed as a society, because I had posted some pictures and talked about Toys R Us scamming. Because if you don't know, they got bought out after they went bankrupt. Somebody else took over, and they're trying to like rebranch and relaunch. First, they started with like only being in Macy's stores, which should have been our first hint that it was going to be a ripoff. Because, dude, I used to work at Belk at one point as a seasonal employee in retail many years ago. So right before I joined the army, and like the stores like JCPenney's and Macy's and stuff, they get these cheap, crappy toys that they just stick in the stores and overprice them like everything else, because they're a department store. They're not really for like toys and stuff, but they keep some cheap ones that way. You know, you can keep your kid quiet. These rich people can just buy something for their kids real quick, even though it's cheap junk. And they're doing something similar with Toys R Us, where I showed these pictures because I went into Toys R Us recently, the new one, because we were already up in the plaza. And I look at the prices and I am taken back, because the first thing I noticed is these water bottles, which I showed a picture of, and I've showed that I own them too, that are $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. I have multiple of them because they're Bluey in Minecraft, and they wanted $5 for them in the store. And I was like, dude, I looked at the same sticker and everything I show. I'm like, yeah, this is literally the exact same water bottle you can get across the street for $1.25. But then I go over to the toy section, and my son loves dinosaurs, and they have this giant name brand with the name brand up display of dinosaurs. But the thing is the large dinosaurs were the only ones that were that brand. And I explained in the video, I'm not talking about the ones that are name brand. I'm not talking about the big ones. I'm talking about the little ones. If you look on their tags, the little ones in that display are a different brand. They're the same brand that Dollar Tree has. They're the hollowed out ones. So if you've ever gotten like a dinosaur toy from the Dollar Tree or Five Below, I mean, sometimes Five Below has like decent ones, but there's ones that are like hollowed out, basically. They are a dinosaur figure, but then they're not even filled on the inside. They're made of this cheap, crappy, rubbery plastic. And in the video, I do clarify that. I specifically say, hey, these are the Dollar Tree brand, and they're selling them for $25, $24.99. And it's a marketing gimmick. It is a marketing scam that is completely legal, sadly. What happens is they will display a name brand with like a giant like name brand sign or something right next to a knockoff brand, and then upcharge the knockoff brand to be almost as much as the name brand, so that people will assume that it's the name brand, and that's why it's so expensive. But legally, they're not doing anything against the law, because they they expect the customer, they will argue, even though most people don't do this, like they know what they're doing. They will argue that, oh, it's the customer's responsibility to check the tag and see that it's not the same brand. And they can get away with leaving those signs up by saying, hey, that sign is technically for this, the one that actually is the name brand. It's not our fault that the customers didn't check, even though they're sitting side by side on the display and it looks like they're going to be that name brand. And at that price point, you assume it's the name brand. And they know exactly what they're doing. It's a marketing ploy that they've done. Like, so many stores have gotten away and done this scammy stuff before for years. But in my video, I explain all of this, and I'm showing pictures and stuff. And the amount of fucking brain dead idiots that came in my comments, I had at least a dozen. Now, I think there's only 3 or 4 left up, but I had over a dozen, and when I would correct them, they would go and delete their comments because they were embarrassed. Because there were people commenting saying, oh, that's name brand, blah, 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 it's so much. And even though I specify I'm not talking about the name brand ones, and I'm like, this is why they get away with this shit. This is what companies get away with scamming people like that, because idiots are the ones buying it. Somebody even commented and was like, oh, they do this because they know idiots are going to fall for it. And then idiots literally came in my comments proving that person's point. The saddest part was all of those people who were commenting those are adults with children. Like, they had videos of I think like one had like a regular private account, but the rest had like pictures of their kids and stuff arguing about, this, because they weren't smart enough to comprehend what I was saying, even though I broke it down super simply. Like, my friend's son, who is 14, still can't read yet because he has an intellectual disability. He has a severe intellectual disability and autism. I showed him the video, and I didn't explain it at all. I only showed it to him once, and he immediately comprehended. I was like, hey, so, like, do you understand what the problem is? And he's like, yeah, that's messed up. They're putting, they're putting the cheap toys beside the name brand toys, the fancy ones, and overcharging and stuff for it. That's a ripoff. A 14-year-old with an intellectual disability and autism completely grasped it in one view. But I had people in my comments who did not at all. These were grown adults with no disabilities, with children of their own. And it made me feel like, oh, we're fucked as a society. We're fucked. We're cooked. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people. It was literally almost a dozen. Like I said, I would comment back and they would rewatch the video and then delete their comment real fast. But there's like 3 or 4 still on there. But it is super depressing to think about how cooked we are as a society that's going on. This entire scenario realistically is also a prime example of what I'm talking about when I say in the next 10 to 15 years we will not have any good teachers left in these schools, because on top of everything else that teachers have to go through with administration, with educational cuts, with all these weird restrictions and rules and that are like being placed out for no damn reason, on top of their low income, like getting paid crap, on top of teacher bullies. So if you don't know, the mean girl, the pick-me girl that peaked in high school, she either becomes a nurse or a teacher. That stereotype is unfortunately very real. I've seen it while working in the hospital. I've had so many teachers come to me with stories about it, and it's super sad, because you know who else goes into nursing and teaching? The most sweetest, amazing people on the face of the planet that genuinely want to help people, and then they got to deal with that. But on top of all of that, then you add the bad parents, or the parents who don't have comprehension skills themselves. Sorry, I got the hiccups. So when you're dealing with all of that, these teachers are dealing with all of this stuff, and then they have a child that might have an issue in their classroom, and they go to the parents to get support for it. And then you got an idiot parent, like the people that were coming in my comments, without any comprehension skills at all. You don't get any help from that parent. And I've heard so many teachers talk about this. You can find so many clips of teachers talking about this, about how they struggle because they're trying to get support from the parent, because they don't have any support from the freaking administration and stuff. They're trying to get this parent to help this child, right? To help their child. But then the parents don't even have basic comprehension, and it just ends up going in circles. And these poor kids end up screwed. You've got so many teachers out there who are quitting. So if you don't know, I have a teacher's nook in my garage where I extreme coupon, but I also get like free stuff from on base when they're about to throw it away, because they will throw perfectly good stuff away all the time on base. It's a whole issue. And so in my garage, I have friends who are teachers, and then they will tell their other teacher friends and coworkers, like, if they need something for the classroom, come get it for free from my garage. There's no questions asked. I have notebooks, I have pens, I have pencils, crowns, binders, like everything that I can buy. I've even got backpacks that I have basically hoarded in my friggin' couponing collection in my garage. For them, because there's certain sales that hit every year, and I have a system, so I get it for really cheap. I also have body soaps, I have laundry soaps, I've got like canned goods and stuff in there too from couponing that teachers know they can come and get if they, no questions asked. And it's really sad to see them when they take things like laundry soap or body soap, which I'm happy to give them, and toothpaste and stuff, but it's still sad to see that they even need that, because there are so many teachers who when I would drop stuff off at the food pantry and volunteer there years ago, I would literally see teachers come in who were coming into the food pantry because they did not make enough to even buy basic necessities. So when you add everything else, including uneducated parents, ignorant parents, on top of it, it is just 10 times worse. There's so many they're leaving. Like I said, I have a friend who works at the school down the road from me, and she has now gotten to the point where she's been in teaching for over a decade, and she started going to trade school. She's doing trade school throughout this summer to switch fields because she can't do it anymore after over a decade of experience. And she even has like a little reward thing for her school. Like, she was teacher of the year more than once. This woman, amazing teacher, but she can't take it anymore. And I always have people, when I comment on stuff like this, they're like, oh, why don't you just block idiots like that in the comments? Why do you always have to talk about it? And it's because I see the bigger picture when it comes to stuff like this. Because, like, somebody just scrolling through, they're going to look at those comments and be like, wow, there's just a bunch of fucking idiots here that didn't even comprehend the video, and just ignore it. But I look at what that indicates. It's not just a dozen idiots in my comments who don't have basic comprehension skills. There are also parents who are, not educated enough, that need to be more educated, that need to be in a better space, because it's causing a generational issue, because now their kids are facing it. We, as in the U.S. right now, have the lowest we have ever had with numbers for reading, which is insane. Like, we have the highest illiteracy rates that we have ever had in history. Well, I mean, obviously not back when like women couldn't read and stuff, but in the last couple of hundred of years, since literacy became a regular thing. That's what I'm talking about. And all of that can correlate to these stinky pheromone maxers, because the amount of boys and men who do this pheromone maxing within the gaming community, within fandom community, that are the reason why Magic Gathering tournaments and Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and stuff all have to have freaking hygiene rules, and card shops are trying to have hygiene rules. If they had just had a basic biology class, like, people who've had a basic biology class and understood it, are not going to fall for this pheromone maxing shit, because they're going to know biology because they learned it in school. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds so smart and so fancy. Of course pheromone maxing's a real thing. That makes total sense. Oh, don't wash my ass for months at a time and it'll attract women. Leave shit streaks on the chairs at Magic Gathering night. Yeah, that totally makes sense. No person who's had basic biology classes in high school or in middle school even is going to fall for that stuff. Education is the core of like everything when it comes to all of these disgusting behaviors. It lack of education and generation after generation copying it is developing these incel creatures. The extremist ones. It is the lack of education, because when you have somebody who's uneducated, they're so easy to manipulate compared to someone who is educated. And then they fall down these extremist rabbit holes, and next thing you know, they're freaking with this alpha male crap about being like, yeah, no showering, like, yeah, it's totally fine to do all these nasty dirty things. Yeah, let me fuck a jar of peanut butter. I literally have not had peanut butter other than that nutty butter that I tried in that video when I was talking about the peanut butter story of the guy, at GameStop that was putting his dick in peanut butter jars. I still can't get over that though. Like, I ate that nutty nut peanut butter that day, and then after that I could not eat any more peanut butter. I still haven't, because I keep thinking about that guy. Like, what do you mean you were fucking a jar of peanut butter in the damn GameStop bathroom? The good news is one good thing did come from that video, though, the Toys R Us video, because a Toys R Us employee, a former Toys R Us employee, one that worked at the original Toys R Us in the electronics gaming department, saw my video on that, checked out my page, saw my GameStop story videos, and was like, I gotta message you. And they have messaged me with some stories. So this former Toys R Us, OG Toys R Us employee, he said he worked in the game, like the electronics section, for 6 years. He ended up leaving about a year before they closed down. And he said he worked every Black Friday of those 6 years and would see these plobs who had not come out of their parents' house, not coming out of the basement in years, every single year. He had this one guy who came every single year on Black Friday and was always getting stuff in the gaming department. He said he served him. He said the reason why he always remembered this dude is because of how bad he smelled. He said a lot of the guys would smell bad that were like this, and he said a couple of women too would come in crawling out of their basements to come to the Black Friday sale at Toys R Us for electronics. He said, but this one guy in particular had a very distinct, grotesque smell every time he came in. He said it was a mixture of body odor, but also spoiled milk. He said the third year that the guy came in, he finally asked him. He said he was very careful about it, so he didn't get fired, but he asked him, he said, he was like, do you maybe like work with cows on a farm or something? He's like, you just smell like dairy a lot. And the guy explained that he would go through a small, not a full gallon jug, but like one of the half-gallon the half-gallon things, the ones with the little hand. My brain is blanking. I am so sorry. I sound stupid as hell right now. But the little half quarts of milk every single day while playing World of Warcraft. This guy's straight, and he said it with a straight face, with like he didn't see anything wrong with it. And he was like, yeah, he drinks half of one because he had read an article. He like tells this poor employee, he's like, come here, let me tell you what, because the guy's like looking at him, he's like, why do you drink like a whole half gallon a day? That's kind of weird, right? And he didn't say it was weird, but he's like, oh, that's just something you don't hear about. And the guy's like, come here, let me tell you about it. And he like leans in and he's trying not to vomit on the guy because he smells so bad, and it smells worse when he gets right up on him. And he says the guy tells him that he had read an article on how it made your dick grow bigger if you... What the fuck? The Toys R Us worker said he just went back to line and he thinks about that. It's been years. He said he's literally been like over a decade, I think. And he said he literally thinks about this all of the time, about this guy, and how he every single year for those 6 years would come in and he always smelled like body odor and milk. Sir, okay, even if you're dumb enough to believe that like drinking a half a gallon of milk every single day is going to give you a bigger dick, just to find medical fact, that's not how that works. But even if you believe that, my question is, even if you believe that at first, how did you not in the 6 years figure out that it was a lie? 6 years of drinking a half gallon of milk every single day. What do you mean you did not figure out in that 6 year time span that it was a crock of shit? Were you just not looking at your own dick? Was it like a surprise thing? Were you like purposely not looking at your own dick for like years because you thought like one day you would just look at it and it would just be giant from all the milk? I don't understand this man's logic, okay? What do you mean? 6 years. 6 years and a half gallon every day. I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but I just still can't wrap my head around it. He said his second year working, the Toys R Us employee, his second year working there, he had a fight break out between two guys who were there for these games are on sale. They were both on sale, and the employee that was ringing them up had announced that like there was going to be no more, right, of that particular. They had sold out at that point because they like kept the games behind this like case or something. He said he had to unlock them, so I'm guessing it was a case. He had let him know like, hey, there's no more. He was letting the line know, and the guy behind the person who was purchasing the last one gets pissed, and so they start like traditional early 2000s kind of Black Friday brawling, basically, except for their two larger guys who are struggling to like, they're just like kind of grabbing each other is what he said. He said he didn't know how to describe it, but they're like rolling around on the floor when one of them reaches in his pants and pulls out physical shit out of his pants and starts rubbing it on the other guy to get, oh God, I want to vomit, to get him to win the fight. I'm going to tell you right now. First of all, I'm never going to fucking fight with somebody over a fucking, like, a video game in the middle of Black Friday. Like, I'm not doing that, right? But if you pull out shit during a fight out of your ass and put it on me, I'm doing 25 to life. I am going to kill you right there. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking... What the fuck do you mean? You were in middle of a brawl in a Toys R Us over a fucking video game, and you stuck your hand down the back of your pants and rubbed shit on somebody else's face. Because the guy said he literally, like, rubbed it in his, like, beard and stuff. Because this guy had, like, a really scruffy beard. They both did, apparently. Like, it looked like they'd never shaved. What the fuck do you mean that you rubbed shit? Nah, I'm killing you right there. I'm killing you right fucking there. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be doing 25 to life. There's no fucking way. The Toys R Us former worker actually sent a lot of stories in, but I'm gonna just tell this one last one, and then I'll do more in the next episode. Like I said, I'm gonna start posting on Thursdays too, but the last story he told me was really sad. He talked about how there was multiple incidences where he would have these plobs come into the electronics department. They were there for video games and stuff. And whenever people would start crowding, they would grope the women, like the moms and stuff that were there. They would, like, try to cop a feel and stuff. And it was pretty common to happen. And then they would say, oh, it's just because, we were shoving through all at the same time. That's why that happened. I didn't do it on purpose, all this crap. But he said at one point there was, like, a line out, and they pitched their tents and all that shit that they used to do in front of, like, GameStops and Best Buys and all of, the Toys R Us's and stuff, and Walmarts and everything back in the day. He said there was one point he was walking in, and he walked past the line. He said they were supposed to go in the back door, and there was, like, an issue or whatever, so he had to come in the front. So he was, like, walking past this line, and these two guys that smelled the high hell literally were wearing, like, freaking... He said one of them was wearing a brony shirt, is why he remembered it. And he said the other one was wearing a gaming shirt, but he doesn't remember the game, what game it was, but he does remember the guy with the brony shirt, My Little Pony shirt on. And these are two grown men, and they were talking about how they loved coming to Toys R Us during these rushes because they enjoyed being able to grope the moms. They said it in a lot more derogatory way. He said they were talking about, like, how hot MILFs were to them and blah, 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 and it was so easy. That's sexual assault, by the way. These guys were purposely going to Toys R Us's and stuff on Black Fridays because they wanted to grope mothers. Yeah, fucking crap. He said that he let his manager know, but the manager didn't do anything about it or anything. And it sickens me to know that he like he said, there's way more than just those guys that were doing this too. Because he'd see it and they'd always say, like, oh, it was just, an accident because we're all shoving in and stuff. It's so fucking nasty. It is that is sexual assault. And I understand that people like that nobody wants to touch them because they fucking smell bad and shit their pants and want to fuck pony figures, but fucking Christ, that is so beyond disgusting. Before we end today's podcast, I do want to remind everybody that I am going to start having mutuals and followers and stuff as guests, because instead of having a bunch of celebrities, I want to have regular people that don't get to tell their stories, I don't care if you've only got, like, 2 followers, okay? Anybody who wants to tell their stories from their GameStop experiences, their ER experiences, their plobs at any of their retail jobs, their fast food job, whatever plob experience that you've had, wherever you had it. I want to have them on the podcast. I have started looking into these websites that have that option to, like, do a digital guest and record it and stuff, so you can, like, do it over, like, video chat or whatever. But I am still trying to figure out which one is the best one, because they all say they're the best one, but then I see reviews saying, like, oh, don't use this one or don't use that one or this. I just want to know that I'm getting a good one before I buy it, and also learning, like, whichever one's easiest for me, because I am not the greatest with tech. So I'm going to keep working and figuring it out. I should have it figured out within the next week or two. And then either this Thursday or next Thursday's episode, because this is my Monday episode, but this Thursday or next Thursday's episode, I will have my first guest on there. I already have somebody who wants to be on there, and I've talked to him, and we're just trying to figure out how to get all of that set up, because I don't know how to do that. I'm literally recording this on the regular sound recorder on the computer that has a pause button. That is like the best I've got. Because I just transfer, I'm now that I know, convert it to MP3 through a site and upload it. So if anybody has any recommendations or has sites that they know, please let me know. You can DM me. And if you are interested in being on the Plopcast, it is 18 plus, obviously. Feel free to email, DM on Insta or TikTok, wherever, because I know apparently you can see like there's comments on these on the podcast. Somebody told me there's like comments on certain sites. I don't know how to see those yet. I'm gonna get to working on there, so it is better to email me at ribbonsprofessional@gmail or to just message me on TikTok or Instagram. Everybody stay safe. Make sure you eat once your stomach is done turning around from hearing those gross stories. And remember, to the grotesque jackass, I hope that the cops finally fucking catch up to you and get those kids to a safe place, because you are a total piece of shit. And that doesn't just go for the grotesque jackass, Jacobson, sorry. That goes for any parent that abuses their children. So, fuck you, you child abusing shitheads.